Wonderful. Okay, well, thanks for joining this morning. Today we have a guest speaker, Samantha Dolby from NewBoCo. I'm going to let her tell us a bit more about the company, but what I can tell you is from their website. Their K-12 education team focuses on tech education and advocacy for Iowa school children to prepare and engage them for an increasingly digital society, which fits perfectly with what we're doing with this grant opportunity. So I'm not going to take much of your time, Samantha. I'm going to let you take it away, and then I know you're going to offer some time for questions and discussion as well.
Yes, definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. I'm happy to be here. I believe I was talking with Brittany earlier this summer and about all of the exciting things you have going on and working with bringing opportunities and career exploration to students. And so we both got just very excited about this. I do have a presentation that I will share and kind of walk through, but I am just real casual. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to jump in, ask them. And then I do have time kind of built in to make sure that I understand what the needs are of the group, because everything that we do is always customized to either the student needs or the organization needs or the district needs, depending on who we're working with. And if we're not the right fit, we always, we're really well connected with others and we bring those in and or point people in the right direction. So I'll kind of start by explaining who NewBoCo is, because that's always a big question. Our marketing team just made a video like, who is NewBoCo? What do we do? Because we do a lot. We have three main pillars: education, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And those all really spring out from needs in Iowa around workforce, either currently, so like short-term or long-term, and making sure that our economy is resilient to changing times. And some of that is just awareness and advocacy. Some of it is actually helping with those career changes or career pathways. And especially in the student side, knowing what you do and don't like are both important. So obviously I'm talking more about the K-12 education piece. We have lots of programs underneath our umbrella. We do a lot of work with districts and teachers, especially around computer science. We have, I think, 7 different programs that we offer for professional development and different capacities, whether it's a one-day training or a whole year training. And we've worked with over 1,200 teachers in the past years. We have another 400 to 500 working with just this year, starting this summer. And we've reached well over 50,000 students in Iowa. And those are all Iowa teachers, Iowa students. But then also we work directly with students as well. We have experience with that. So we have some student-focused programs, and that's kind of where we'll be talking a little bit more today, because that seemed to be a better fit. And then a little bit about my background. I grew up in Waterloo, Iowa. I did not have access to computer science in K-12, but I was encouraged by several of my teachers to look into engineering, and I ended up majoring in computer engineering at Iowa State, and really enjoyed that. Went into industry, and then figured that by the time I had kids, all students in Iowa would have access to computer science. And while we have done a really great job with STEM, I was really disheartened to find that was not the case. And if you work with me long enough, you learn that if I get angry about things, I try to not just complain, I try to do things about that. So I found myself pivoting in my career and volunteering at NewBoCo with some of the initial student programs they had, and then eventually being asked to come on board and run their K-12 programs and build up the teacher training piece, so that students throughout the state could have access. So in this, I like to talk about, I think you are probably all on board with this because you're working around this, but whenever I talk with people about why computer science is important for all students in Iowa, sometimes we still get pushback on that. That's because, and the reason why it's important is because no matter where they go, every company is a tech company, and every different aspect of our lives is impacted by that. Even if they're not going to become software developers, they need to have a foundational understanding of that so that they can be effective in their roles, even if it's in marketing. In my experience in industry, it would have been so much easier to work with marketing and salespeople if they had some of that basic understanding, so that we were speaking some of the same language, and vice versa, right? Engineers needed to be able to kind of understand what their roles were as well. But I like to show these pictures just to show the many different aspects of career potential. Agriculture, we talk about a lot of creativity in computer science, so I like to show off the Pixar visual aspects there too. There's a lot of programming that goes behind animation. dealing with food insecurity in urban farms. I always love the guy that has the Google goggles on there, and talking about virtual reality, AR, VR, all of those things that are especially impacting education to bring access to students. But that, and then along with the self-driving Tesla semi, ethics, right? So ethics behind computer science. Just because we can does not mean that we should be able to do something. And so having students also grow up understanding that things that are not always built, even with the best intentions, with everything in mind. And so we have to bring that to the forefront of the conversation as well. We also talk about that broad perspective of computer science. Most people think of big data and algorithms and programming, those kind of things. But I always like to point out that we want all students and all people to be good at abstraction and problem solving, no matter what they're doing, understanding how the internet works. It's not just a series of tubes, just having that basic understanding. And then really the ones I like to highlight are that creativity piece again, and then global impact. Everything is global these days. We want students to understand how they can communicate, be effective, and bring different perspectives to whatever careers they might be doing. A little bit closer to home, and this, let's see if I can put this link in the chat here for you. You can see all of the stats for all 50 states. This one will take you to Iowa's. I pulled this earlier this week, I think, and it gets updated about every month. So before the pandemic, we saw an average of about 4,000 open computing jobs in Iowa. We go down to 3,000 up to 5,000. And since the pandemic, it has steadily been going up every month and stayed consistently high. You can see that they do get a really good average salary pay in the state of $83,000. And 64% of our high schools teach computer science. That was a little bit higher before the pandemic, and some of them had to pause it, but we'll see that rebound that year. However, we are only graduating from our four-year universities about, less than 800 graduates. And that means that some of those are also out-of-state students that come to Iowa and graduate and then leave. Some of those are in-state students that also leave. So we have a huge supply and demand problem. So if students are interested in going to those careers, there is a huge opportunity within our state in so many different companies, big and small. So we're going to kind of talk about the student program aspect now, because one of the things we do with direct access to students is help supplement what they might have in their school districts. We want to make sure that they have it in their K-12 experience, because there's an equity issue. Not all students are able to participate outside of school on a Saturday in the evenings, things like that. But to supplement that, we also want to provide what schools can't, which is more opportunities to dive into different aspects of computer science. And one of those that we've done for several years is Code++. And that is a way for middle and high school students to have one day dedicated to an aspect of trying one part of computer science. Historically, that's been around web development, because that's always in demand. And that's kind of what we'll talk a little bit about today. We have worked with, I think our first group was 60 students. And then as kind of in our region, more students participated, we kind of settled in around 10 to 20 students for each cohort. And then this is actually a program we're looking to maybe revamp the activities we have them do and look at different aspects of the field, because a lot of the middle schools are now implementing curriculum we've trained them on. So students get access to web development, and they're looking for more. So what that format looks like is a one-day event. We do work with 8th through 12th graders. We've had as young as 6th graders. And we just kind of work with the parents and the students on, if they're going to feel comfortable in the environment, if they're going to be able to kind of handle the level of rigor, which isn't super hard, but being able to advocate. Yeah.
This is the level that I kind of indicated that last meeting that we were going to probably be most interested in.
Perfect.
Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Just making sure.
Yep. Yes. So the current structure of it is we focus on teaching the students HTML and CSS, so those basic web development skills. We have in the past had repeat participants, and then we've had an option for them to either do that again, because sometimes they just want more time with the content, or we've had instructors focus on JavaScript, which is kind of like the third piece in web development. What I'm proposing today is just kind of with the group starting with the HTML and CSS as a good starting point. And by the end of the day, they have their own website that they've designed and developed. We've had students that have built websites for their volleyball team, for the band. We've had students that came in with a friend, and one of them argued that pancakes were better than waffles, and the other liked waffles. So they each made a website arguing that. Some of them do cats, it's whatever they want to do, and we just give them the skills to make that. Our timeline is 8 to 3. We do provide a light breakfast and some lunch. We try to get that sponsored because we do try to work with a lot of at-risk students, or students that might not have access to opportunities otherwise. And then this is kind of the outline of the day. We start off with an introduction of, why STEM, why computer science. We give them some career examples, and I have one of our slide decks here. So we show, if you like music, if you are into agriculture, if you like fashion, if you are interested in healthcare, if you are interested in robotics or manufacturing, all of the things that you touch every day are powered by computer science and technology. And so you can find a space in there that speaks to you. So kind of making sure that it's inclusive, they can see themselves in it, and they know that we're not going to tell them you have to do one certain thing. It's really open to your interests. Then we go into a high level overview of how web pages work, and then let them brainstorm what they want to build a website about. Give them some time, give them time to sketch it out, kind of what they think they want to make it look like. And then the rest of the morning is an introduction to HTML and then a lot of work time. So we give them, depending on the size of the group and how many questions they might have, an hour to hour and a half to work through just the HTML piece. Then we break for lunch. And when we come back, then we do the introduction more detailed on CSS, and that's the styling aspect. So that's where they get to bring in the background colors and the font colors or font styles, images in the background, and all of those type of things. And then again, more time to work. And then we always offer at the end students to share their work. We don't make them because that's something that everyone's comfortable with. We do try to get them to at least talk about what they did. And then in some cases, like if they're willing to share things they struggled with, things that they want to spend more time on, things that they might work on after that, just to show them that they continue that work. So I'm going to pause there and let you guys ask any questions you might have about just kind of fire hose information at you. Anything about the format, the class structure, things we do there.
Yeah, so how would we arrange that? Would I kind of be arranging it on the school side, then your team would come in and conduct it?
Yeah, so and we could talk a little bit more too about what your needs are long term. So my suggestion is we would come in for probably at least the first one and do, run an event, model that, have people like local people there to observe and see that. Because I'll talk in a little bit, mentors from local industry are also a big part of this class to kind of build that in. And then train, if someone locally, whether it's you or someone at a company or someone else that you're partnered with, would feel comfortable running these whenever you want, kind of giving you the package and then saying like, here it is, here's the training, you can always reach out to us with questions, that kind of stuff. Okay. Then you can kind of own it from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're just you're giving us the outline and what to do. You're in a nice whatever, and then you'll help us through the first year, and then if we need support after that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. What other questions right now?
This looks pretty good, except I'd like to have it for more than a day, because I don't think you can really teach kids in a single day how to be, proficient with designing a web page. I'd like to see, do you have something that's a little longer, like maybe 2 weeks afterwards? I like it.
Thank you, Vic. That was not staged.
And then my second question is the cost for the event and the longer period that the kids would need.
Yes. So I can share costs for the Delta V side of it because that's something that exists. We would kind of at the end of this, I want to kind of get a touch point of what level of support people would want. And then I can kind of come back with like how much time we think that would be to help spin those up in the different communities. And I can get back to you with those details.
Okay. Now, another thing is we want to get some certificates of completion for the students, because that's one of the things the feds are asking us about. How many students completed this training program or that training program. So I don't know if you already offer that or if that's something that we can build in.
Yep. So that for the Code++ piece, we don't have that existing. We could certainly work with you to build that in. With Delta V, I know if they go through the full program, then there is a certificate of completion. And then we could probably work on like the course by course piece to add that in.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So the next piece I talked about with Brittany was, so Code++, we use that locally to kind of give it as a exploration opportunity for students, try to get them interested. And then we've done this long enough and we work with local districts that we can say, all right, you go to Washington High School, or you're going to be going there if you're a middle school student, you enjoyed this class, here are courses you should look for at the high school that you might be interested in. So building that kind of pathway of, here, you're interested, or you still like coding, but maybe not websites. Let's look at these type of things. And that's kind of what we're thinking we could do with the Delta V program, because we can do that statewide and support students that are interested. I do know, so we've got Council Bluffs and Des Moines and Olwine as kind of the three targets for I know Council Bluffs, we have worked with their high school. They have opportunities. Des Moines, depending on the high school, does have classes, and I'm not sure about Olwine yet, but that's something that we could certainly make sure that students are encouraged to look into that. We know that doesn't always work out with schedules, but that's something that we do locally. So Delta V Code School is a program that we run in Iowa. We are the first code school boot camp style training in Iowa. And we partner with a national organization called Code Fellows out of Seattle to run, they build the curriculum, we approve it, modify it as needed locally, and then we run it in the state. It originally started off for career switchers as one of those short-term filling in the gaps opportunities for people that already had a degree and didn't want to go back to 2 or 4 year school and want something faster. But we have more and more seen interest from high school students and have been working, again, most locally, but in some other regions, to have this be kind of like that next step, especially if they don't have something at their high school or they've exhausted their opportunities there. So Delta V 101 is actually what we based Code++ off of initially, but we kind of scaled it down a little bit. It wasn't as long because we do have some of the younger kids that come, and we modified it just for that interest career aspect piece. So if they go through Code++, they would be really well prepared and feel confident going into Delta V 101. They're going to go into things more deeply, like Vic is asking for. It's going to be a little bit longer, and they're also going to get a peek at that JavaScript piece. They're also going to get an idea of if they like the pacing of a boot camp style opportunity. We are all options on the board for students. So that could be they go on to a community college, they go to a 4-year, they do online something, they do boot camps, whatever that might be. And so this is a great way for them to see if a boot camp style learning opportunity is something that fits with their learning style. There are virtual and in-person options. So obviously here it'd probably be virtual opportunities, but with enough people, it could be a local in-person in the community piece. This is also a program that we've been able to get some supplemental support on. So typically it's $99 per participant. Right now it's $30 because we have some of that supplement. I don't know how long that runs. This is a group within our organization, but kind of separate from the K-12 a little bit, but I can check on that if they know timeline. And like I mentioned, it's a great way to kind of test that out. And then they would be able to go on to Delta V 201, 301, 401. The whole program is 20 weeks. For high schoolers, I would not expect them to do something past a 201 or a 301 just because of the timeline. We have had students go through summer programs like through the 201, But this would maybe be better for like seniors to go through the 201. And then if they decided that they want the boot camp style, they could continue on that program. And then they graduate, they get a certificate of completion. It's not really a graduation, but certificate of completion. And they would be able to be hired as a junior software developer. The average of our students that have completed the program, they get paid an average of $60,000 starting salary. Or maybe it's like 58, 59, somewhere in there, but it's been kind of trending up because our software developer pay is going up quite a bit right now. So really, really great, especially for the students that, college is not the format that's going to work for them, but it's okay if this format doesn't work for them either. Pause there. Questions about Delta V 101 and then kind of that progression potential.
So for a lot of this, we're going to be restricted through our MOU to offer this in high school.
Mm-hmm.
We just have an agreement with the college here. So the only way that we're going to be able to make this a class that our students can take is with the 8th graders. Can this class be a semester long or a year long class that they would be able to complete this and get their certificate as an 8th grader?
Yes, so I do know that the Code Fellows organization that we work with, they have modified 101 and I believe 201 to be semester-long courses. Okay. That they could participate in potentially. We haven't done that with the high school in Iowa yet, but we are happy to, they have tested out in Oregon, Washington, and I think 2 other states.
Well, and the only way that we would be able to do this in the high school is if we created a after school club, and then they would. Mm-hmm. So, but they meet 3 days a week, 4 days a week, just depends on the club and who's running it,
Sure.
Delisa, I am kind of, as first I've heard about any kind of restrictions because of the maybe Iowa Western, some kind of an agreement. I don't think that would apply for this OSTCP grant because it's shouldn't be the entire, student body for both high schools. It should only be those kids that are enrolled in the after school program.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. And if we need to have a meeting later on to clear this up, I'll be available. But yeah, we want to open this up to high school kids as well, because it's getting them into potential.
Well, yeah, if this is only meant for after school programming, then there's no problem.
Okay. Yeah, and that's all you can spend it on with these OSTCP funds or 21st Century.
Yep. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that just to make sure, we.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could definitely work with you to see what a modification would look like. Especially if you want to try it with different groups too, you could get feedback on, is a 1 day too much? Do we want to split it out? How many times do you meet with students and how long? And then we can certainly figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, and if somebody comes out of the woodwork and, so complains and says, oh, we've got a restriction, you can't do this, we'll have a meeting and we'll straighten it out.
All right, perfect.
Okay, so this is kind of where I subbed in talking about your needs and what you would want support on, what sounds good, what's not of interest, those kind of things that we can work through. And then I didn't want to lead the horse, so I put some ideas in the next slide of suggestions, but if we've got more things that come up, that's great. So it looks like, would you want to target 8th graders and high school students? Is that what I'm hearing, for one or both potentially?
Yes, I think that would be great because, well, we're trying to bring some of the CTE down into the middle school. We're kind of lacking that area as a district. And so just seeing if we can get middle schools involved, and then hopefully they figure out their pathway faster.
Sure. And which community are you with?
I'm with Council Bluffs Community School District.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and now the other two high schools are not going to be doing the same kind of thing for the 8th grade because just the way that they're set up with the two grants.
Okay. Okay, and so does the idea of having something that kind of piques their interest is like a low level commitment that they get to experience something and then could continue on to kind of more in-depth opportunities? Does that sound like
Yeah,
something to start with?
and I don't know, I may be speaking out of turn here, but I would like to start with just maybe that 1-day event. Just to, get a feel for how people react to it here. What kind of interest do we have? Can we get the adult support that we need to continue this?
Sure.
Yep, I would also like to have these events labeled as computer science. Because one of the things with this OSTCP grant is the feds want to see us doing more because we put computer science in our application. So we want to make sure that we align our language to what the feds are looking for.
Yep. And one other opportunity too is if the 1-day events kind of seem like the sweet spot and those are adopted in the regions, like I said, we're looking to continue to provide different experiences within computer science. So we're working on a physical computing one next, because that's my background, so I love that part. But where they can program LEDs and make things buzz and beep and that kind of stuff. And we've done all of the things we're looking to do. We've done them in other exploration like programs that we have, but we would kind of be doing that packaging up for a 1-day event and looking at how do we get them from the initial exploration to like a little bit more in depth. So for that one, we've got the pieces. It's just kind of looking at what that flow of the day would be in the timeline. And we're hoping to test that out this fall. But if that's of interest, we could certainly, again, package those up, and then you would have choices that you could look from, whether it's web development, physical computing, artificial intelligence, whatever that might be. And that might be different in each community. Or if you want to get really crazy, you could like split the groups and let the students decide, which we've done on a small scale, but maybe not start off with that option. All right, well, I can kind of jump down into like some suggestions, some ideas from that. And then I think this is all kind of fitting in with that. So the idea with the Code++ would be that we would package up what we currently use. We would run, the initial event, provide training on that so that it could be run locally, and then, help find someone that would be comfortable running that or, facilitating, leading it. We also always say you don't have to be an expert in the content, but you have to be willing to help problem solve with the students and demonstrate that, because that is one of the biggest skills that students we work with seem to be lacking, is the fear of, I don't know. And so seeing adults model, like, I'm not sure. And like I said, my background's not in web development. My husband's is. So I always forget like the structure of some of the CSS parts. I'm like, oh, darn, I have to Google that thing again because I don't remember what the syntax is. But that's good for them to see, because that happens in industry every single day. And then, yeah, run the pilot event. For the Delta V 101, if that's of interest, could organize a local class or help students register for the virtual options. Could also be a hybrid of that, where like if there's a group of students that want to be in the same room together and they tune in virtually, that has happened before too. And then a potential for a local Delta V community partnership in the future. That's something that our organization as a whole is doing, where we are trying to say we figured out economic development and training and K-12 programs in our communities. Let's try to package up what other communities need and work with them to figure out that locally. Not saying that everything we do here is going to just transfer exactly, but so we have, I think, 3 initial sites this year piloting some of those, and they've picked from a menu of options, that kind of stuff. So that could be something that these communities are able to bring. And that's something that we've found like matching grants for. It could be a community type thing. It might fit in with what you're doing and broader as well. But that we can push off to the future if things go well. And then the other piece is that local industry part. We have found a lot of value and help in having local businesses provide volunteers that are just mentors throughout the day. The time commitment is pretty low, that one day, and they oftentimes want to come back and do it again because they see the value of connecting with students. We ask them to share what they do in the company they work for, which is a great highlight of the company. And then they just, wander around during that work time and help students solve problems. So it's also a great way the industry people have found like to connect with students and help them understand that like, oh yeah, Alliant actually has software developers too. They do electricity, but they have software developers, or, John Deere or whatever that might be. And so we would be able to help, you probably know the local companies. If not, we work a lot with the STEM hub managers. You guys work with them as well. Like, let's see, Council Bluffs would maybe be in Southwest, which would be the Southwestern Community College, I think.
On occasion we do.
Okay.
But it's not a real close.
Okay. So they have a lot of the like industry connections too within the region. So that might be a helpful connection for the different communities to find initial volunteers or interest from them. And then the thing that I've also found, and this I always like to criticize because I come from industry and I have made these big mistakes of thinking, oh, sure, I can go talk to a classroom full of 8th grade students for an hour and a half about Bluetooth protocols, no problem. And then I get the glassy-eyed stares and it's the longest hour and a half of my life. And so we also have done training with industry professionals on, okay, you're talking with 8th graders, 10th graders, whatever it is. Here are the things to do and not do. Keep your like what you do in your job to 5 to 10 minutes and then make it hands-on. And so we have kind of built some training around that and just guidance to help them so that hopefully we avoid some of those awkward and unfruitful situations. For the like Code++ events, it's pretty easy because they don't have to do that just other than introduce themselves. But I've definitely observed and been a part of some of those time sucks. So that's kind of just a rough draft of things to kind of get the discussion going. We don't have to discuss it all here. You guys can certainly take the information and let people watch the recording. But if you've got any feedback or any other things that you're like, oh, but we really need this, or we would really like support there, or this sounds good, but could you, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, we like to try to take what we have and customize it to fit the communities or the needs that are out there. And I'll open this up so I can see all of your lovely faces. What questions do you have now?
Well, one of the ways this grant works is that it's set up for the locals to decide what they want to do and to do the contracts. So if all 3 of the sites want to do this, then you'd have 3 different contracts and they might ask for different pieces within that. And that's fine because we're doing a better job that way, meeting the needs of students.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's definitely something we do. We've over the last few years, we've been asked more and more to do customized professional development for districts. And so we always write like an agreement that kind of spells out what they're interested in, what it is, if it's an hourly thing or it's a package thing or whatever it is, and then manage those. I think there would be some opportunity for just like brain share between the communities maybe on challenges, but I'm sure that probably happens with the grant anyway, of talking about, hey, we tried this and it worked, or we tried this and it didn't work. But I think, otherwise, like the events would be local and customized to that community, modified as needed.
Yep, and from what I saw of your prices, it seemed very reasonable, and they all have sufficient funds to engage in a contract. And that's one area that we are in need of, is the computer science, because we have the more traditional experiences for kids Doing a work study, job shadow, apprenticeship. But we don't really have much with computer science, and so this is a great opportunity for both of us.
Yeah. And like I said, I can take this and kind of put together what that package for the Code++ would look like, assuming that we would be traveling to the different communities to help out. And then, I think someone mentioned like a year, like helping with the first year, if it's a kind of a year, like some of that could be virtual, tuning in and checking in, stuff like that. If there's additional site visits, usually it's the travel that makes things more expensive.
Well, yeah, that's understandable with the price of gas. But this is a 5-year grant, and we're in year 2. So this is year 2. We've got then 3 more years to move this forward.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you have any other questions, I can put my email in the chat.
Thanks, Samantha. And I'll make sure to
Yeah.
include it. I'll send a little summary out too, and make sure to include your email. And then if people have additional questions, can they just reach out to you directly?
Yep. No problem.
Wonderful.
Well, I don't think I see O-line on here.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, maybe what we want to do is send out an email with Samantha's contact information and maybe links to some relevant data they have on their website. And maybe when you send out the link to the recording, send that out as well, so that we can get everybody with the same information.
Perfect. All right. Well, I will get you the information that I promised in the next week or so. Next week I start traveling. I travel for 5 weeks of PD.
Oh, wow.
So I
Okay.
apologize if I'm a little slow on replying to things, but my brain will be scrambled quite a bit, I think. And then if you have any, if you have like guidance on timeline, usually we're pretty flexible on when those events or trainings could happen, but most people want them like during the school year, which works out pretty well. Our PD, a lot of it happens in the summer, and then we have some of it that continues through the year. But if we move forward, we can look at when that would happen, and happy to chat on details with the different communities.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time, Samantha. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye.